Darbar Sahib complex, popularly known as the Golden Temple, is the center of Sikh religious and political life. On June 1, 1984, the Indian government launched an attack on Darbar Sahib and 40 other gurdwaras in Punjab. It was named Operation Bluestar, but Sikhs refer to it as the Kallu Kara, meaning genocide. Operation Bluestar was a momentous step in annihilating the Sikh collective psyche. The timing, actions, and aftermath of the attack on Amritsar in 1984 became a turning point in establishing impunity as the modus operandi for the Indian government's handling of its minorities. The voices raised against the government-led violence were made to disappear in India and continue to be targeted for transnational murder today. The Sikh sovereign state in Punjab lasted till 1849, when they were defeated in the Second Anglo-Sikh War. Sikhism is the fifth largest religion in the world, comprising 2% of India's population. However, they contributed more arms and men to Indian independence than all other groups combined. Realizing their major role, the British government in 1932 informally offered them a homeland if they quit the Indian independence movement. Based on assurances of a glow of freedom from the Congress Party, the Sikhs maintained their loyalty to India. The British partitioned India into India and Pakistan, drawing a line across the middle of Punjab, splitting the Sikh homeland in two. In 1950, the Constitution of India was enacted without the consent of the Sikhs, who refused to sign it because Article 25 labels Sikhs as Hindus. When reminded of his promises to the Sikhs, Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru replied, "The Sikhs have missed the bus." In the Punjab Reorganization Act of 1966, Punjab was divided into 3 separate states, making it a sixth of its original size. Punjab's river waters were distributed by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi to non-riparian states without its consent, despite water being a state subject in the Indian Constitution. Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, leader of a Sikh seminary, campaigned for state rights with the Anandpur Sahib Resolution, which stated that the central government would only be responsible for defense, foreign relations, and communication. The Indian government branded this as a demand for secession. On May 11, 1983, when asked about a separate Sikh state, he explicitly stated, "How can a nation which has sacrificed so much for the freedom of the country want it fragmented?" Sant Jarnail Singh and his licensed armed followers had taken up residence in the Darbar Sahib complex since late 1983. During this time, the government generally attributed acts of violence that occurred against Hindus to Jarnail Singh. However, the most serious offense he was charged with was for making inflammatory speeches. As a senior officer in Punjab said, "It's really shocking that we have so little against him, while we keep blaming him for all sorts of things." William Stevens of the New York Times wrote, "One possible explanation advanced for the government's raising of the Khalistan question is that it needs to justify the killings in Amritsar and the invasion of the Sikhs' holiest shrine." To maximize civilian casualties, the Indian Army chose a specific date for the assault, when a large gathering would be expected. June 3rd, the 378th martyrdom anniversary of the 5th Sikh Guru, the architect of the Darbar Sahib. It began by taking positions on the periphery, allowing pilgrims to enter, but barring anyone from leaving. By June 3rd, the Darbar Sahib complex had at least 11,000 people when, contrary to government claims, without warning, the army began its full assault with 70,000 troops and 8 tanks. A survivor account tells of 400 to 500 people killed in a single room, and Joyce Pettigrew, quoting senior Punjab police officers, put the death toll at least 10,000. The government published a different version of events in its white paper, claiming 92 soldier and 554 civilian and militant deaths. It claimed that Operation Bluestar was in response to an immediate threat of secession. In reality, the army was preparing for the attack 18 months prior, long before the militants entered the Darbar Sahib. The white paper also stated that the militants set fire to the library on June 5th, while eyewitness accounts from the librarians themselves state that the library was intact on June 6th at the end of the operation and was burnt later. Police officers confessed that the library's contents were stolen in sacks filling 20 trucks. These contained 400-year-old handwritten hukamnamas of the Sikh gurus and other priceless artifacts. Looting this treasure house of the Sikhs suggests that Operation Bluestar was more about assailing the spirit of a people than catching supposed terrorists.
ਮੁਗਲ ਰਾਜ ਤੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਪ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਰਾਜ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਮਾਤ ਪਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜੋ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਹਰਮੰਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਹਮਲਾ ਕੀਤਾ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਇਦੋਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ ਦੀ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਪਾਪ ਹੋਇਆ।
Sant Jarnail Singh gave this interview to the Associated Press between June 1st and 4th, before the army killed him on June 6th. If AP could get to him, could the government not get to him without killing thousands of Sikh pilgrims or destroying the shrine? Those who survived Operation Bluestar, including women and children, were locked up in jails with the charge of terrorism. 4-year-old Rinku was one of the so-called infant terrorists. When asked where his mother was, he replied, "I do not know." When asked where his father was, he said, "Killed with a gun." Why his stomach was so big? Because I eat clay. A report by Mary Ann Weaver in the Christian Science Monitor states, the pattern in each village appears to be the same. The army moves in during the early evening, cordons the village, and announces over loudspeakers that everyone must come out. All males between the ages of 15 and 35 are trussed and blindfolded, then taken away.
मैं अजे तक 27-28 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਉਹਦੀ ਸ਼ਕਲ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਤਰਸ ਗਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਲਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨ ਗੋਲੀ ਵੀ ਮਾਰ ਲਈ ਸੀ ਕਮ ਸੇ ਕਮ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੋਡੀ ਦੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਰੱਜ ਕੇ ਰੋਤਾ ਲੈਂਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਆਦਾ ਮਨ ਔਖਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਲਜੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਾ ਲੈਣੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਉਹਦੀ
ਕੱਲੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਜ਼ਿਲ੍ਹੇ 'ਚ 2000 ਬੱਚੇ ਲਾਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੇ ਕਿ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਨੇ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੁੱਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਡੀਕ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ
Jaswant Singh Khalra was an incidental human rights activist whose 2 colleagues at his bank went missing. He went looking in the cremation grounds and found registers with names of thousands of unclaimed corpses brought by the police. Instead of investigating his findings, the authorities threatened him to be either silent or become the 25,001 disappearance. He became the latter.
ਪਰ ਉਹ ਦੇਸ਼ ਜੋ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਜਮਹੂਰੀਅਤ ਤੇ ਨਿਆਂ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਹਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਹਾਈ ਕੋਰਟ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਜ ਕਰੋ ਇਹ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਲਿਟੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਤਾਂ ਬਣਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਮਸਲਾ ਖੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਰੇਕ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਸ਼ ਹੈ ਭੇਜ ਦਿਓ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਨਾਲ ਮਖੌਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਮਖੌਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੋਰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਡੈਥ ਸਰਟੀਫਿਕੇਟ ਹੀ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਸੀ
ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੇ ਜੱਜ ਨੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 3 ਸ਼ਮਸ਼ਾਨ ਘਾਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਨਸਲਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਵਰਸ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ
It's so unfortunate that to talk of human rights is really to lay oneself open to the charge of being a terrorist.
In retaliation for Operation Bluestar, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her Sikh bodyguards. In response, the Congress party orchestrated anti-Sikh pogroms in Delhi and other major Indian cities.
This man was a victim of the riots who survived an attempt to burn him alive. His wife tries to comfort him. A relief worker in this camp showed us his list of dead and injured. He'd compiled it after talking to people in just one block. The list contained hundreds of names.
Days after the killings, it was still the river, not the authorities, that bore away many of the bodies. Others were removed by the police, who are unsurprisingly sensitive.
Sorry, please.
Police refused to file first information reports for these killings. Thus, only 6 people have been convicted of murder, while the main perpetrators became cabinet ministers in the elections a month later, where the Congress party had the biggest landslide victory in the history of the Indian Parliament. A report of the Citizens Commission on the Delhi pogroms concluded that the objective was to teach the Sikhs a lesson. The incredible and abysmal failure of the administration and the police, with instigation by political elements and the role of the media, all led to the carnage. Amnesty International was barred from entering Punjab from 1978 to 1993. The US State Department reported that the Chief Minister of Punjab informed the State Assembly that over 41,000 cash bounties were paid to Punjab police for extrajudicial killings of Sikhs in 2 years, from 1991 to 93 alone. Taking a cue from the Congress's electoral success with impunity against Sikhs, the opposition BJP chose to target another minority, the Muslims. After demolishing a 16th century mosque in 1992 and anti-Muslim carnage in 2002, the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi, was re-elected in a landslide and later became the Prime Minister of India. In 2005, the US government denied him a visa for his role in the riots, but in 2023, ignored history and condoned impunity by inviting him on a state visit to the White House. Emboldened by the US embrace, the Indian government indulged in transnational murder of Sikhs living in the UK, US and Canada.
Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Operation Bluestar and its aftermath, with subsequent electoral successes, took impunity of action against minorities to a contemptuous level. It marked a turning point in India's political discourse, championed by both major parties there, and concerns echoed here in the chambers of US Congress on March 21st, 2024.
The people who are suffering, the Muslims and the Christians, the Sikhs, in Punjab who are suffering because of this, you called it incredibly concerning, a culture of
Impunity.
Impunity. I can't read my own writing. Culture of impunity. You've called it the way it is.